Masechet Megilah, Daf Lamed. We're talking about the placement of the reading of Shekalim, Parashat Shekalim, which occurs, should be before Rosh Chodesh Adar. We said why? Because people have to start preparing to give Machazit HaShekel. The Bet and the Bet HaMikdash are going to be using the Machazit HaShekel starting Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Can't wait till last minute. So we need a month before so that people can get prepared and give it and bring it to the Bet HaMikdash and use it. Okay, so now we're dealing with a whole bunch of different scenarios. We're going to see this one and then the other parashiyot, the four special readings. So itmar chaliyot ve'ata tesaveh. If it so happened that the parashat Shavua is tesaveh, which is the one right before kitisa. All right, here's I brought a tikkun so we can look at it together. Right, so this is tesaveh is the end. And then is Kitisa right after. So if the Parashat Shavua is going to end here, Lashem, and then Parashat Shekalim is going to be these 6 Pesukim over here. The question is, how should one combine Parashat Shavua with Parashat Shekalim? This is, of course, assuming that we do read Parashat Shavua, which we do today. Unlike the other opinion that says we only read the Parashat Shekalim, and we skip Parashat Shavua during those weeks. Okay, so we're going to see two opinions. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Napacha, Karushita me'avata tesaveh ve'ad kitisa, ve'chad mekitisa ad ve'asita. So Rabbi Yitzchak Napacha is very simple. We read 6 aliyot in Parashat Tesaveh. Usually we have 7, so we're going to double up, and we'll read 6 aliyot there. And then the 7th, Mashlim, who's be maftir also. In those days, they didn't mind having Mashlim also be maftir. We'll read, the 7th aliyah we'll read from here, Kitisa, until Ve'asita, not including Ve'asita, meaning until Nafshotechem. That's the 7th aliyah. So very good. And then you fit everything in just fine. Amar Abaye, Amri okomehu dekamok mi hatam. But that's not good because people won't realize that you're reading a special parasha of Shekalim. They'll think that, oh, I guess you just stopped there. That's where you decided to stop and end the parasha. Remember, they didn't have books like we do here where it says Kitisa nu parashat Shavua, right? They didn't have, most people didn't have a scroll at all. And if they did have a scroll, it looked like a Sefer Torah where it just looks like this. And so people will say, oh, I guess he's stopping there, right? There was actually more flexibility back then and different customs about where to stop in Eretz Yisrael and Bavel. So therefore, he says it's not noticeable that you're reading a special reading for Kitisa because you're just continuing right here. So therefore, Abaye has another opinion. Ela Abaye karu shita meve'ata tesaveh ad ve'asita. So Abaye says we're going to read the entire Parashat Tesaveh all the way up until here, Ad Nafshotechem, in 6 aliyot. So that's Mashlim. And then the 7th aliyah will go back and repeat this Kitisa, repeat these 6 Pesukim. If you're repeating them, everybody's going to say, wait, we just read that. Why are you repeating? Oh, I know, because it's not just a continuation of Parashat Shavua. This is Parashat Shekalim, is where it says, give Machazit HaShekel. Okay, so good. That's Bayem, makes a lot of sense. Now, Meti Be, we're going to have a challenge. Chaliyot B'Parasha, Hasemuchala, Ben Milefaneha, Ben Milachareh, Korinota V'Choflinota. We're going to see, this Braita says that if Shabbat Shekalim occurs, if Kitisa occurs during either right before Parashat, if Parashat Shekalim occurs either right before when Parashat Shavua Kitisa or right after, the week after when Parashat Shavua Kitisa, Korinota v'Koflinota, then we read it and we double it. So now, right now, we're understanding this Braita to mean that we double those 6 Pesukim. We say it twice. That's exactly what Abaye says. You read Tesaveh, that's the week before, and then you're all the way until the into Kitisa, and then repeat it. He said, read Parashat Tesaveh and 6 aliyot, and then read Kitisa only once. So there's no doubling. Amalach Rabbi Yitzchak Napacha, Ulabaye Minicha, Tenach Lefaneh, Ulachareh, Chi Mashkachat La. So Rabbi Yitzchak says, I have a good defense. Abaye can't explain this braita either, because this braita says whether before or after. After is Parashat Vayakel. So what are you going to do with Vayakel? Abaye didn't say anything about when you read Parashat Vayakel, there's no problem. You read Vayakel, and then at the end, you finish that Parashat, then you read Kitisa. That's going backwards. You wouldn't repeat it. Even Abaye would not say that there's any repetition there. So how's Abaye can't explain this braita either fully. So therefore, rather, how can anyone explain this braita? Kofla b'Shabbatot. Kofla b'Shabbatot. We're talking about is if Parashat Shekalim needs to be read when the Parashat Hashavua is Tesaveh, then in that week we read Kitisa instead of Tesaveh, and the next week we read Kitisa again, or similarly after. If Parashat Shekalim falls out on Shabbat Vayakel, we read Kitisa the week before for Parashat Hashavua, and then we read Kitisa again instead of Vayakel as Parashat Shekalim. That's what this Braita is talking about. It follows the opinion that we replace Parashat Hashavua with a special reading. Okay, so therefore this Braita is not a proof or disproof for either opinion. Okay, now another case. Chaliyot bekitisa atzma. Parashat Shekalim happens to fall out on the very Parashat Hashavua for Kitisa. So it would seem to be fantastic. Just read Parashat Hashavua, but it's not noticeable that you're making a special announcement. So we have to do something different. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Napacha, he's an expert in these matters, and he says, Karushi tamin ve'asita ad vayakel, vechad kare mekitisa ad ve'asita. This is very interesting. He says you're going to have 6 aliyot, and you start from ve'asita. When you start Parashat Hashavua, the Parashat Hashavua is Kitisa. Don't start from here. Start from here. Read 6 aliyot, and then the last one, the 7th aliyah, will go. You have to turn all the way back and go back to the beginning and read Kitisa. That way, it's out of order. It's out of order. People are going to say, wait, why are you going backwards? Oh, it's Parashat Shekalim. Got it. And so that's how you would solve the problem. Okay, Matkif la Abaye hashta amre lemafreyahu dekare. Abaye says, no, this is not actually noticeable. People will just think, oh, I guess he started in the wrong place. So he's reading backwards, right? It's still Parashat Hashavua. He's just reading out of order. So people still won't realize, they might be a little confused, but they won't know that it's Parashat Shekalim. Ela amar Abaye, karushita ad vayakel, v'chad taneh v'kareh mikitisav ad ve'asita. So Abaye says, you'll have a doubling. You're going to read 6 people, 6 aliyah, 6 olim will read the whole parashat Kitisa until the beginning of Vayakel, not including Vayakel, and then 1 will go back to the beginning and repeat the Rishon, repeat the first 6 pesukim, and then Abel will say, wait, we read that already. Oh, with Parashat Shekalim, we all better give your machazita shekel. Okay, so that solves the problem. And Tanya Kivate Abaye, Braita supports him. Haliyot be ki tisa atzma korinota vechoflinota. So we read the parasha and we repeat. You don't have to repeat the whole parasha, just Parashat Shekalim. All right, Mishnah goes on and says, Haliyot betoch haShabbat maktimim l'Shabbat l'she'avra. If Rosh Chodesh Adar falls out and during in the middle of the week, on a weekday, then we're going to read Parashat Shekalim on the previous Shabbat, because we need a full amount of time. We need at least a month before Nisan in order to prepare for Machasita Shekel. So therefore, if we wait till the Shabbat after, it's going to be not enough time. Itmar Rosh Chodesh Adar shechal liot be'erev Shabbat, and so now we have a case of Rosh Chodesh falling out on Erev Shabbat. Okay, I'm going to refer to these calendars here. This is thanks to the Art Scroll Talmud that put them together. These are the 4 different scenarios that can possibly happen in our calendar today, and you can remember them in this way. Dad refers to if Rosh Chodesh is on Dalid, meaning on Wednesday, the Yom Revi'i, then the week that we skip is the 4th of Adar. And so we'll have Shekalim beforehand, right? Because you always go before. Skip 1. Parashat Zachor has to always be right before Purim. Parah has to be right after Purim, and Parashat HaChodesh has to be before HaChodesh. So this makes sense to be the one to skip. If Rosh Chodesh Adar falls out on Zayin, that's the Zayin here, on Shabbat itself, then the week that we're going to skip is Tet Vav. Because para has to be after Purim, but it could be here or here. We're going to discuss all these scenarios. If it's on Vav, if Rosh Chodesh is on Friday, that's the case we're about to discuss now. Then we actually skip 2 weeks during Adar. Bet, that's the bet, and Yud Vav is 16th. That's Ubio, and then Bo is if it's on Monday Rosh Chodesh Adar. Then Parashat Shekalim is before we skip. We have no regular Parashat Shavua, no special on Vav. And then we continue. Okay, so those are the 4 scenarios. And now the question is, yes, we know that when a Chodesh Adar falls anytime in the middle of the week, you're going to push Shekalim beforehand. But what about on Friday? See, on Friday, it's right before Shabbat. Can't you just squeeze it in? It's only 1 day over here. Or do you go all the way back 6 days to the previous week? But you see here, this is what we do, halacha l'maaseh. We go back, but it's actually a machloket in the Talmud. Itmar, Rosh Chodesh Adar shechal yot be'erev Shabbat. Rav Amar maktimin. Rav says you go back 6 days. Shmuel Amar macharin. No, read it the next day on Shabbat. Rav Amar maktimin. De'im ken basri lehu yomeh shulchanot. Rav says you got to do it before because otherwise you're not going to have enough time before the money changers set up their tables, and you're going to have to start. People are going to have to give you, right? Push it off. The money changers come in the middle of the month, and we need at least 2 weeks for people to prepare. What this is talking about outside of Jerusalem, that's where the collectors would go in the middle of the month. So if you do it here, you're not going to have enough time. From 2 to 15, you see, that's less than 2 weeks. Whereas Shmuel Amar Me'acharin Amar Lach Sof Sof Chamesa B'Ma'aleh Shabbata Mikla. ושולחנות לא נבקיע עד חד בשבת, הלקח מאחרין. Shmuel says, no problem. I agree that you have to have 2 weeks of preparation. But look, if you read Parashat Shekalim here, right now, if 2 weeks from Rosh Chodesh is a Friday, so the collectors usually come on the 15th. But since it's Friday, they're not going to set up their tables just for a short day and then have to put them back together, put them back for Shabbat. Rather, they're going to delay putting out the collection tables till the 17th, till Sunday. And therefore, if we read Parashat Shekalim on this Shabbat, the 2nd, there's still 2 weeks, right, from the 3rd to the 17th. So there's no problem since the tables will be delayed anyway in such a scenario. All right, good. So both make sense. However, we're going to have a couple of proofs for Rav, refutations of Shemuel, and therefore we're going to end up siding with Rav. So here's the challenge to Shemuel. Tenan, chaliyot betoch Shabbat, maktimim l'she'avar, umafsikin l'shabbat acheret. So if Rosh Chodesh falls out in the middle of the week, then we go backwards to the previous. And then will interrupt on the following Shabbat. The following Shabbat will have nothing. So my lava filu be'erev Shabbat. So since it says and during the week, if Rosh Chodesh falls out during the week, that means anytime during the week, even Friday. Friday is also during the week, isn't it? Lo betoch Shabbat davka. No, when it says in the middle of the week, it means in the middle of the week, and Friday is not the middle of the week. This is betoch Shabbat. So it has to be Thursday or before. Okay, fine. I mean, it's a possible reading. Shemuel got out of that one. Tashema ezohi Shabbat rishona. Kol shechal Rosh Chodesh Adar liot betocha. Mishnah said the first Shabbat in Adar. On the first Shabbat of the series, we're going to read Parashat Shekalim. And what is that first Shabbat? Any Shabbat that Rosh Chodesh is within it, even afilu erev Shabbat. My love, afilu be'erev Shabbat dumya de tocha. So therefore, mat tocha maktimin erev Shabbat maktimin. So when we say that it's during the week that Rosh Chodesh is in it, doesn't that mean also if it was Erev Shabbat, Friday would be similar to Thursday or Wednesday, and therefore we should go back to the previous one? Amar Shemuel ba bechen tana de Shemuel ba. Shemuel had another version of this braita that instead of saying Kol Ezu Shabbat Rishona, Kol Shechal Rosh Chodesh Adar ba, instead of Liot Betocha. If Rosh Chodesh Adar is on Shabbat itself, then we read it on that Shabbat, and then afilu erev Shabbat. Even erev Shabbat, we read it the next day on Shabbat. See, in that reading, it would prove Ketanae, Mesargin l'Shabbatot Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says you are going to skip a Shabbat. There'll be an interruption during 1 week that you're not going to have any special parasha. And we saw in basically all the scenarios, right? There is 1 week in which we skip. However, Amar Shimon ben Elazar, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar omed en mesargin. So he says, no, we don't skip. Now we have to clarify that Amar Rabbi, because we saw this, we're going to see there's a lot of reasons that you need to skip. Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, ani omed en mesargin. In what scenario do I say there's no empty Shabbat? Right? There are not in every scenario. Sometimes there's going to be an empty one. Only in this one. Bizman shechal liyot be'erev Shabbat, when Rosh Chodesh Adar is on Friday, then there's no skipping. Aval bizman shechal liyot betoch Shabbat makdim v'koreh b'Shabbat shabra af al pi shehu Shabbat. However, it's the middle of the week, then you go back to the previous one. Okay, so everyone agrees if it's the middle of the week, go back to the previous one. But here he says explicitly that if it's on Friday, then there's no skipping. Well, let's see, how could that happen? Oh, see, if it's on Friday, then Pashat Shekalim will be here, and that way there's no skipping between Shekalim and Zachor. Okay, I don't know what he's going to do with these, but maybe he means specifically no skipping between the first two. And so that would only be true if Shekalim was on the next Shabbat, which is Shemuel's opinion. And so therefore we can see that Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar follows Shemuel follows Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, and Rav follows Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. So in fact, there's Machloket Tanaim, so we can't disprove Shemuel. Nevertheless, we have so many challenges against him, so halacha is like Rav. All right, now we get to the next one. B'Sheniyah Zachor, the second Shabbat of the series, and the second Shabbat of Adar, generally, will be Parashat Zachor, which makes sense, because Zachor has to be immediately before before Purim. Purim is on the 14th, so it can't be that Shabbat. It has to be on before. Itemar Purim shachaliot be'erev Shabbat. Now, what if Purim is on Friday? Here's that scenario, right? Purim is on the 14th, is on Friday. When should you read Parashat Zachor? Well, logically, since it has to be beforehand, it seems that would be on the 8th. However, what if, can you make it just 1 day since it's so close? Can you do it on the 15th? Let's see. Rav Amar Maktimim Parashat Zachor. Rav says you go all the way back. He seems to be consistent, just like we saw before. Shmuel Amar Me'acharin. Shmuel says just go the next day. Rav Amar Maktimin Kiechi Delati Gdom Asiya LeZechira. Rav says you have to read Parashat Zachor first, so that the doing will not be before the remembering. The reading of Parashat Zachor is Zachor. Remember, right? Let's have in mind what Amalek did, and then the doing, the celebration of the stopping Amalek in the form of Haman Hagagi, that is Purim. So we can't do the Purim before we remember what Amalek was all about, and therefore it has to be the Shabbat before. Says after all, you have the walled cities, and they celebrate Purim on the 15th. So there's lots of Jews celebrating on the 15th, and for them, they'll have Parashat Zachor and Purim on the same day. So you won't have the doing before the remembering, at least not for everybody. Some Jews will do the remembering and the doing on the very same day, and that's sufficient. Okay, it seems that Shemuel, wants to keep all these as close as possible to the ideal day. All right, Tenan. Now, again, we're going to challenge Shemuel's opinion here. It says, B'Sheniyah Zachor. Mishnah said that on the second Shabbat, we read Zachor. V'haki mikla reshercha b'Shabbat, mikla Purim be'erev Shabbat. Ukatani B'Sheniyah Zachor. Well, wait a second. After all, if Rosh Chodesh Adar is on Shabbat, then Purim will be Erev Shabbat. Purim will be Erev Shabbat, right? That is this case, and in such a case, the second Shabbat is Parashat Zachor. That proves Rav, right? And that would disprove Shemuel. Amar Papa, my Sheniyah lafseka. Papa says no, don't take second to mean literally the second Shabbat. It means the second reading, the second chance that the second reading will be afterwards, but it means the second one after you take a break. Doesn't say you can't take a break. Okay, so the Mishnah just says first, second, third. That's not clear if it means for a second week or second reading, second chance. Okay. Tashema, another braita that will try to disprove Shemuel. Ezo Shabbat Sheniya. What is this braita expands? What is the second week, which would be Zachor? Kol shechal Purim liot betocha. Any week that Purim is going to be during that week in the next days after that Shabbat. Afilu be'erev Shabbat, even if it's on Friday. My love, erev Shabbat dumyad detocha. As even if it's on Friday, so the point of this paraita seems to be as you read Parashat Zachor when the Purim is during the week, and it says even Friday. So why is it saying even Friday? Even if it's so far away, 6 days later, still you treat it like any other day of the week, and you don't go the week before. That's what I've said. This challenges Shemuel. Amar Shemuel ba Shemuel ba. Shemuel says I have a different version of that paraita. That it doesn't say that Purim is in that week, but rather Kol Shechal Purim Ba. If Purim is on Shabbat, then you're going to read Parashat Zachor on Shabbat with Purim, and then it says even erev Shabbat, even the day before, you push it to the next day, and in that version, it proves what Shemuel says. Okay, you wonder if the machloket is actually because they received different versions of a baraita, and so that's why they're following one or the other, and then they once they have the baraita, they go ahead and find justifications to explain why. Chaliyot b'Shabbat atzma. Okay, next case is when Purim is on Shabbat itself. Amar Rav Huna, which we cannot have in our calendar, right? With no, as Purim is here and Purim is here, right? So we don't have that in our calendar, but theoretically it could happen. And if you're using witnesses, Amar Rav Huna l'divrei kol and makdimin. No, everyone agrees in this case that you would read Parashat Zachor on Purim itself, on that very Shabbat. That's according to Rav Huna. But Rav Nachman Amad Adaini Machloket. Rav Huna says no, the Machloket will apply also in this case. That one will say you read it on that Shabbat, and the other will say you go back all the way before. Rav will say you go to the week before. Shemuel says that same day. So this is a statement in the name of Rav. Purim shechalot b'Shabbat. Makdim ve'koreh b'Shabbat she'avra Zachor. You go a whole week early so that you can prepare, think about it, and then you have the whole week beforehand to think about the Zachor asher asa lecha Amalek. Okay, next, now the third reading of the series, Bashilishit Para Aduma, on the third Shabbat or third reading, it will be Para Aduma Tenor Banan. Ezohi Shabbat Shelishit, which is the third week? Kol shesemucha lePurim achareha, whatever is closest to Purim afterwards, the Shabbat that's immediately following Purim. Itmar, Rabbi Chama Rabbi Chanina Amar, Shabbat Semucha Rosh Chodesh Nisan. But another opinion says, no, it's the Shabbat that's before Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So which one is it? Actually, they're not arguing. They're talking about two different scenarios. Hadik la Rosh Chodesh Nisan be Shabbat. If Rosh Chodesh Nisan is on Shabbat itself, then you're going to follow Rabbi Chama, which is the previous week, will be Shabbat Para. So that would be this case down here, right? Rosh Chodesh Nisan is Parashat HaChodesh. Fine. So then the Shabbat immediately preceding is going to be Parashat Para, and that is a whole more than a week away from Purim. But in any other scenario, we're going to read Para right after Purim. If it's on Sunday, then right after. If it's on Friday, no, not yet that either. Purim, then Parashat Para is over here. We read it afterwards. Okay, we still have to deal with the Friday case. Okay, Barevi'it hachodesh hazeh lachem. Okay, on the fourth Shabbat, we read Parashat HaChodesh. Tenor Rabbanan, Rosh Chodesh Adar Shechaliyot BeShabbat, Korin Ki Tisa Umaftirin BeYehoyada. Okay, this is actually a long baraita. Long baraita is going to summarize a lot of things that we saw already, but bring it all together in one place. This is like the original version of baraita that we quote a snippet or two from it already. So when Rosh Chodesh falls out on Rosh Chodesh Adar, falls out on Shabbat, then we read Ki Tisa ומפטירין ביהוידע, נפטרה יהוידע, ואיזו היא שבת ראשונה, כל שחל ראש חודש אדר, להיות בתוכה, the week during which Rosh Chodesh is going to be during that week, afilu of Shabbat, even if it's on Friday, we read Parashat Shekalim, the Shabbat beforehand. Basheniya, Zachor, umaftirin pakadeti. Vezohi Shabbat Sheniya, kol shechal purim liot betocha, afilu be'erev Shabbat. The second reading is Zachor, and the haftarah would be pakadeti from Shemuel, when Hashem tells Shaul to go and destroy Amalek, so that's relevant. And what is the second Shabbat? Whatever week has Purim during that week, you read Parashat Zachor on the Shabbat before Purim, even if Purim is going to be on Friday, we go back. Right? Again, that would be like Rav. Bashilishit para aduma maftirin v'zarakti alechem. So the third reading is para aduma from Chukat, and Haftarah is from Yechezkel, which says, I will sprinkle upon you clean water upon you, which is a symbolic take on para aduma, but referring to the same symbolism. And that will be the one immediately after Purim. And the last one is going to be Parashat HaChodesh from Shemot 12. And the Haftarah will be also in that same regard in the first month, on the first day of the month. So referring to since it says that's the first day, that's Nisan, that's the appropriate one to read. And what is the fourth Shabbat? Kol shechad Rosh Chodesh Nisan liot betocha afilu be'erev Shabbat. That will be the Shabbat immediately preceding Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Even if Rosh Chodesh Nisan is on Friday, we read Parashat HaChodesh the week before. Okay, good. Now that's a nice summary. Baraita b'chamishit chozrin lechesidran, and then our Mishnah then said on the fifth week, after we finished all the four special readings, we go back to the normal Parashat HaShavua. What does that mean? Leseder mai Rabbi Ameh amar leseder pashiotu chozer. Just what I said, the regular Parashat HaShavua for the study reading of Chumash. According to the B'ameh, during those 4 weeks, we do not read Parashat HaShavua. We skip it, and then we have to double up something else, some other time of the year, and then we go back. Rabbi Yirmiyah said says, no, you read the regular Parashat HaShavua, and you add another Torah for the special reading. And what it means that you go back to normal, it means you go back to the normal Haftarot. And this is what we do during the four special weeks. We don't, if it falls out on Tisaveh, we don't read the normal Haftarah for Tisaveh, but we'll read the special reading for Shekalim, or whatever the special reading is. It makes sense what a B'ameh said, that we skip the whole Parashat HaShavua. Dithnan lakom mafsikin l'Rosh Chodeshim l'Chanukah u'Purim l'Taniyot u'Ma'amadot u'Yom Kippurim. If you remember, our Mishnah says we interrupt Parashat HaShavua. This is talking about the weekday Parashat HaShavua for Rosh Chodesh. If it falls on a Monday and Thursday, then we skip Parashat. We read Parashat Rosh Chodesh. Chanukah and Purim also as fast days, right? We do that. Ma'amadot, when they had those, and Yom Kippur means in the afternoon of Yom Kippur, even if it's on Shabbat, we don't read Parashat HaShavua, but rather these special readings. Now, this makes sense according to the B'ameh, that says we interrupt the Parashat HaShavua readings. That's why we're talking about these examples of a weekday, and during a weekday we read Chumash only. We don't read Haftarah during a weekday, so we're talking about the interruption of Chumash Parashat HaShavua. According to the other opinion of Rabbi Yirmiyah, there are no Haftarot during on a weekday. So what are you talking about? That when it falls on a Monday and Thursday, we read Rosh Chodesh and we skip the Haftarah. What Haftarah? So be consistent, right? Don't you have to be consistent? The whole Mishnah is either talking about Chumash, or the whole Mishnah is talking about interrupting Haftarot. Well, the end of the Mishnah is clearly talking about Haftarot. But Yirmiyah could defend himself. Says V'idach hakadita. No, the Mishnah is not talking about all one case. That last clause of the Mishnah is talking about the weekday readings. But the previous clause that's talking about the 4 major parshiyot, that's talking about haftarot, and it could read the Mishnah perfectly well in that way. Okay, ubataniyot lamali hafsaka, and during the fast days, why do we stop the parashat hashavua? Likri misafra binyana deyoma ubemincha betanita. Why not in the morning read regular? If it falls on a Monday and Thursday, a fast day, then in the morning read regular parashat hashavua. And since we read Torah during mincha on a fast day, so during mincha read Vaychal Moshe. Instead of what we do now is we read Vaychal Moshe twice, in the morning and the afternoon, and we skip parashat hashavua. So that's a good question. Must be that, you see, this would support Rav Huna, who says in the morning of fast days, we have a big gathering in the synagogue. And during that gathering, we're thinking about the teshuvah, ways we can do better because of the fast. So therefore, we want to do a Torah reading that relates to the fast, specifically in the morning, and not just make it a regular reading like any other day. Okay, what is this special gathering about? Hechi Avdina, what's the schedule of a fast day? We already saw this in Masechet Ta'anit. We bring it here again. Amar Abaye, misafra lepalged yom me'ayenin b'milei demata. From the morning until midday, we get together and we examine the affairs of the town, right? What's going on? Are people conducting their businesses fairly? Are we taking care of the poor? Are people acting properly? Right? Where do we need help? Where can we where can we make teshuvah? So that's the whole morning. See, so we want to read Vaychal Moshe because it will prompt us to make teshuvah. Then from noon until the third quarter of the day, we're going to read Torah and Haftarah. And the last quarter of the day is when we say Tahanunim and ask for mercy. We see in Nehemiah that says a quarter of the day they would read Torah, quarter of the day they would be praying. So there, that's referring to the 2 quarters of the afternoon. Oh, now question. Hold on. Maybe we should switch around the order. We don't know. It doesn't say which 2 quarters of the day here in Nehemiah. Maybe it means that the morning, the first quarter of the day, they would read Torah, and then they would pray until noon. And so maybe in the afternoon, that's when they would be thinking about teshuvah. So maybe in the afternoon, they could read the Ta'anit reading, and then that will leave the morning open during the regular prayers that you can read Parashat HaShavua. So how do you know it's this order and not a different order? Switch the morning and the afternoon. So no, that can't be. La sakada. Techtichtiv. Ve'la ya'asefu kol hared b'divrei Elohei Yisrael al mal hagola v'ani Yoshem ad l'minchat ha'arev. Uchtiv u'minchat ha'arev kamti mita'aniti. So this is in Ezra, chapter 9, that says everyone who was afraid of God's word, and because of the transgressions that they're around me, because people were intermarrying and other problems, so I was sitting there and I was appalled until the evening. And that pasuk by itself doesn't prove anything, but rather the next pasuk, and then at the evening, meaning afternoon, I arose from my fast, rent my garments, and I fell on my knees and I prayed to Hashem. So when does Ezra? What is Ezra's order? In the morning, he's learning all about the bad deeds, the things that they need to fix. And then in the afternoon is when he is praying. So you see that from Ezra that he can't switch the morning and the afternoon. It's the afternoon. That's when they do the praying. In the morning is when they're making teshuvah. And therefore, in the morning, we have to say Vaychal Moshe. Afternoon also, we have to say Vaychal Moshe. And that's why we interrupt the regular Parashat HaShavua on a fast day. And we don't read it all. Instead, only read the Ta'anit readings. And we'll begin the Mishnah with tomorrow's daf. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.